Hey, welcome back. This is where we left off after the initial keyframing. Here is where we got in this. Uh, did a lot of keyframe corrections, added the bird, added some outlines. We had the outlines, but we remembered to actually animate them. So we start off with a good old reminder of how far we still have to go. Uh, Taking a good look at a good number of the keyframes, still seeing the broken arms. Take a good second to correct some random things that I realized I had not keyframed all the secondary controllers on the correct frames. So what ended up happening was I had a bunch of things just kind of wishy-washy moving when they shouldn't have been. Um, so I kind of jumped the gun at the beginning, thinking that I would go ahead and just fix the arms, not realizing that I do still need to treat the approaches bottom up when doing this. So I tried to do a little better job of focusing on specific regions, uh, starting with the feet, then the hips, and then moving upwards. And I think that approach definitely improved the whole flow, especially going forward. I started using the annotation tool to try and match better some shapes, try to better train my eye to see which parts of the body were moving in which directions. Uh, I mean, the big things were obviously the forearms breaking, but some of the hip motion and rotation was going in the wrong directions. I had the hip going backwards when it should have been going forwards. Little small things that you really do need to go pretty slow and break down because I was assuming a lot of things that were incorrect. Um, yeah, also had a pretty lively chat last night, which was awesome. Uh, Definitely chime in or drop by if we have fun. I do a lot of silly little animations in the moment. But yeah, so fixing the forearms and stuff was a much lower priority uh, in terms of getting the rest of the body shape correct, only because moving the chest and moving the hips changed the angle that I needed the elbow to be facing, as well as changed inevitably how those secondary controllers were going to modify and fix some shapes. Um, Again, I'm noticing different shapes that the chest, like the whole torso through the hips, needs to be taking, as well as how hands are remaining. Huge issue. I really hate those wrists. Uh, those wrists are awful. And I think that's just on the model. Going forward, I'm going to try to better better skin that because I couldn't tell you what's going on with the wrist. I'm just fixing it as we go. I'm also doing a better job of kind of scaling up how the feet move. So instead of immediately going to the most accentuated, I've got the feet at least stationary, and then I'm highlighting which direction things are going, which I think makes it look a little more emphasized and a little less floaty. Um, yeah, a big thing I'd tried to give myself credit for in the previous iteration was trying to maintain that sense of like balance and space. And you know, from certain angles, that was being felt, but not at all angles. So this was really me trying to push where I'm looking at things, uh, mainly trying to prioritize the camera view. I also switched from an orthographic to a perspective view. I think um, I did that because of my line art. I think I still like the orthographic view more. I like because it's already very flat, and I think the orthographic kind of pushed it into a slightly more stylized angle. But I wasn't getting the outlines I wanted between streams, so I switched the camera and I cleaned a bunch of like I think the image was also keyframed and moving, as was the camera, which we'll get to. But at this stage of just cleaning, I need a static shot to make sure all my shapes look good. And the outline looks good. Here again, yeah, trying to fix my foot was sliding, something that just went unnoticed that last time. There's lots of little small things that you know, if you go back to the beginning or you see the end where we show the full animation, I hope there's not that many frames, so nothing like super drastic, but lots of improvement to be had. Speaking of improvement, I do finally prioritize getting that fist, and I've got the IK controllers on the fingers, and I don't realize that yet, but the IK controllers are super nice to have. But I do spend a hot minute figuring out how to curl a fist with with IK controllers, and then I do it again with FK controllers, and then I figure out how to actually apply it as a fist pose, which apparently still doesn't take the thumb into account, which is annoying. But I do appreciate being able to use a fist pose, and I think getting the hand into a fist makes a lot of these poses really look a lot better. I don't hate how it looks with the open palm, but to me it looks so much more like he's throwing a punch when he's throwing a punch. And I hope we can agree that making a fist is maybe important to throwing a fist, to throwing a punch. Anyway, lots of neat little hand stuff that I get a little too into the weeds, but I'm trying to remind myself, this is a at most maybe 2-tone hand. I don't need it to be super perfect. What I do need is to understand how AutoRig Pro is going to interpret this, is where I decide to actually spend my energy, which smartly I do. I find a good video. I'll link in the description. It's slightly outdated. It's from like 4 years ago. They're still using Blender 2.9 and I'm using Blender 4.1. So some things don't translate. But it's still good. It shows how to use the FK controllers, which is something that I'm doing now finally. Didn't understand how or where to switch that over, nor did I understand how to apply that pose shape. I will say their tutorial, due to its age, requires you to make a pose library, which is, I think, just not needed I know it's not needed anymore, as I did not do it. But yeah, you see me here going on yet another slight tangent, making a new action in the action editor, all of which is unnecessary now, which is cool. All you need to do is make the fist pose and apply the fist pose. And then the other big thing that I spent way too long trying to figure out was how to translate that to the other hand. Couldn't figure out how to symmetrize a pose. And I'll just tell you right now, Control C on all the bones. If you're using Rigify or AutoRig Pro, they're labeled correctly with the .L. And then if you Control Shift V when you're pasting, just in pose mode between bones, that's what I'm doing here. Shift Control V. It'll symmetrize it, which is sweet. Did not know that. And I cut out a good deal of me Googling. So you're welcome to both of us for not making us sit through that again. But yeah. And then you get a little hand controller, and I can apply a fist in all the poses that need fists. And great success. Yeah, already the hand poses, I think, are probably some, like, I was not giving enough importance to the hand poses. I was trying to get the big shapes down, but between the forearms breaking, the hand shapes, I think, are what sell the rest of this. I'm doing a good job, I think. Feel free to disagree. I'm doing my best to conserve, volume and weight, and try and figure out how you would balance in a pose like this, in this like really extreme lunge. And and I'm trying to get that idea of like force and like leaning into it as strong as possible. But yeah, I think also getting the hands in the right orientation, allowing the arms to kind of look more natural is important, and very difficult when your rig and or model are a little jank like mine. But I start cheating to the camera, getting that forearm to at least look right. I'm going to see how that works as I try to break down and get the in-betweens in. We will I am crossing every finger and toe. I've knocked on some wood. I became superstitious in the hopes of good favor. I'm so scared. I'm so scared of those forearms. Yeah, but got fists in, which was awesome. A lot of the posing's pretty, I think, a lot more solid. It's got to looking a lot better. I believe, yes. And then this is when I begin tackling those forearms and really, really cheating to the camera. But the big thing, if you look at like the knees in a lot of these poses, you'll see the boots clipping. Just read that latest One Piece chapter, was having a good time making my boy quite rubbery. But yeah, so I'm basically here. I'm just modifying the pose so that there's less clipping between. I'm also noticing that my reference material has a good deal of clipping. Yeah, had a good deal of conversation during this stream. So I was trying to figure out how best to get rid of this clipping on that knee and get some feedback from some people that were falling asleep. So aiming to stream a little more during regular waking hours to get some good feedback and not sleep deprived ramblings. So yeah, again, cheating to the camera a good deal. I tried to fix whatever was happening with his derriere because something snapped when I was trying to get that really extreme shoulder rotation and lean. And I can get the legs to look good again to the camera, but I might have given a little too much credence to some unseen angles. His hips were like capsizing into themselves, which I thought was important to, for the sake of, again, maybe like a contour, maybe the outlines. I wanted everything to, I do still have those like pseudo shadows, and I wanted that to look as correct as possible with his butt like imploding on itself, which was interesting. I might even pull that leg. I'm looking now, that right leg, that forward bit of the hip might pull that back just a hair. That's looking almost disconnected to me at this moment. I don't know. Lots to look at. But yeah, big things just being trying to get as clean of a shape as possible. Using these flat colors is great. Had somebody come in saying they preferred Ganon, which, you know, fine, fair. Love his design too. This was explicitly chosen as to simplify. I've already, how many hours spent trying to just animate one of his several in a simplified style. I feel like I would make Ganon too detailed is all. I would get very distracted detailing him. Maybe I would find a way to block him out like this. This simplified color scheme is a large proponent of why I choose certain characters over others. If I'm doing something animation heavy, if I'm just doing a sculpt, sure. here I begin to imagine using this graph editor and doing the in-betweens. I believe I find, yeah, a couple things aren't on. I'm pressing T and I'm setting every interpolation to constant. And I think my secondary controllers are still fighting me on this, which is always fun, especially when they are the thing that are breaking your forearms. And then to just kind of give myself a break from all that rigging, I do go back to my thing of choice, which is somewhat shader related. I didn't like how stark the edges were on the thighs and the scarf. So I gave myself a little break, a little blender break to go in and smudge out a bit of the like stark contrast, just so it looks a little cleaner. This bit I think is still just going to fight me. I don't think I love how I did the thighs. We will consider, no, we will continue thinking about the thighs, as all good artists should. And then I'm here fixing some thigh shapes where stuff is looking broken or where the chest is losing that jacket seam. I think this is my last attempt to, again, looking for an ability to in between. I'm going to watch a couple videos before I start streaming again to remind myself or learn for the first time how to break down best with the graph editor. I didn't want to just linear interpolate everything, so kind of gave up on graph editor. But there were a few other things I could do before calling it for the night, and by night I mean very early morning, which was to finally apply that outline as well as get to the bird. I think the bird itself, when I'm holding a pose for so long, I do want to start. A very big thing that is interesting and enticing about this specific animation is this very specific VFX. I think the VFX in tandem with like the simple character model and short-ish, if challenging and still iconic, like frames to kind of aim for, all culminate in what I think is like a really, really interesting beginner study. I will say I need to change my approach to these VFX, as my idea was to take a plane, do some planar modeling, sure, success, and then I solidified and applied a bevel so that I could apply a Fresnel, try to get those outlines, and I'm using these Fresnels basically as a mask between an emission and a transparent shader, so that in the areas that are on the outline, it's fully opaque, it's fully emission, whereas in the center where we still want to see him, it is transparent. This allows me to use my modeled thing as a kind of stand-in for a VFX, and you can still see him. For a first pass, this is fine. For a decent I consider most of what happened past, mixing a mask as pretty bad. I don't like how like geometric a lot of the Fresnel ends up being. And I don't like how kind of sparse and undirected the Voronoi texture becomes. I'm probably gonna refactor almost everything. We'll see how much of the bird itself I can use. But yeah, I really hate those like hard stepped edges, as well as how it does not feel that the the bird doesn't dissolve in a way that I actually want. This is absolutely a first pass. And I decided again to just pull from the colors. And watching it back so much, I don't think the bird needs an outline. I think the bird itself can be outlineless. But I pulled the colors back from the model, and then I pushed a slight gradient so that it's the emission strength is similar to that's being driven by the fake light, the fake rim light. And then I went ahead and I let it be a little more transparent, which kind of broke every flat color thing I was doing, where now it doesn't look like a flat color. But we'll see what happens. I do like the white outline. I like that the outline's not touching. That's something I'm taking a lot of inspiration from an artist on Twitter. I'll link their stuff in the description as well. But yeah. Yeah, now that we've seen it all, hope that was interesting. Do be sure to follow on everything. Twitter Card, Twitch, YouTube. Hope you enjoyed. I enjoyed this. I'm looking forward to making more progress. In-betweens and smears are, I believe, top of my list, top of my priorities. And then I will consider to what degree I can completely improve everything about that bird. But thanks for watching. If you made it this far, hope you enjoyed. Love to talk about anything Blender related. Yeah, thanks for watching. Tune in again. I'll be streaming soon. I'll be posting soon. Sweet. Goodbye.